Hello, everybody. My name's Milan Starcic. Welcome to Freedom Rising, a podcast dedicated to empowering individuals on the journey to personal growth, lasting serenity, and freedom from addiction. Tune in and join the movement. Your journey to freedom starts here. We neither represent, promote, or demote any 12-step program or organization. We are merely souls on the path of recovery with the desire to expand our lives and experiences and share them with you. Hello, everybody.
Hey guys.
Welcome to the 59th Recovery Freedom Rising podcast. I'm Milan Starcic with co-hosts Andrew Norman and Jim A. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself, Jim, as this is your first time here on the program?
Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much. Nice to meet you, Andrew, and good to see you again, Milan, my friend. I'm an alcoholic, and because of the good sponsorship, a blue book called Alcoholics Anonymous, and a lot of meetings, I continue to have sobriety dating back to December 31st, 1995. A little bit about that. Being an alcoholic, being impatient. New Year's Eve started in Toronto, Canada on the 29th and ended 250 miles away in Ottawa on the 30th. So I started early and finished early, but I was still too sick on the 31st. So that's my first dry date. I live in a suburb of Toronto called Oakville, Ontario. I am a member of the Attitude Adjustment Group here. We meet 7 days a week on Zoom, and I can provide links for that. Or if you go to aahalton, HALTON.org, or the meeting guide and look up Oakville, Ontario, you can find it. As well as the 7 Zoom meetings, we have 6 meetings in person every week. We do let the church have their building back on Sunday mornings. Other than that, I've got a sponsor. I am a sponsor. I've got a service sponsor, and I have a service sponsees. And it's good to be here, and it's good to be us. Thanks.
Super grateful that you were willing to come on the show. Just for everybody out there, I was just down in Mexico, and Jim happened to walk into a meeting and got asked to be the speaker that night and sort of spend 20 minutes telling his story. And we got to know each other through that process. And it was just right away awesome and interesting. And then Jim came out to a beach meeting I was starting, and we got to know each other just a little bit more intimately there. And so I was really grateful that you were willing to come on. Okay, I have a question that I ask everybody the first time they're on the program. What was the pivotal moment when the program sparked a recovery fire in your heart, Jim?
I think it took about, my early days, I was living in the front half of the house with she who soon to be divorced from me in the back half of the house. So the Uncivil War was on, and I think it came about 3.5 months in, mid-March or so, when my sponsor gave me a small pocket copy of the 12 and 12 and told me to read step 3 every day for 30 days. And I started doing that. On the 19th day, I got ink on a separation agreement, and I saw that willingness works. I surrendered my fight and just put it in God's hands, and I knew it was there. About the 5-month mark, I'm at work. I've got 2 screens on my desk, and I'm going crazy, and I get through it, and I recognize that I didn't say, oh, wait a minute, I could use a drink here. And I noticed that later on, putting things together and just meeting people and having the help and support during the Uncivil War that occurred, and getting on with it. About our in Canada we have Victoria Day weekend, and I watched my 4-year-old daughter catch a fish at about 11:15 on a Saturday morning, and usually 11:15 on a Saturday morning I'm at the porcelain altar communing with Toity Woman. Didn't do that. So I'm seeing little things. I'm seeing fine detail. I'm seeing things that they seem meaningless if you're the casual observer, but I understand now things that are simple that and that are unexplained. You can feel the wind, you can see its effect, but you can't see the wind. Well, that's the thing with a higher power. I can see things happening in my life that I can't explain, and I'm not going to waste time doing it. I'm going to enjoy them. Thanks.
Awesome. I
I
love
love
that.
that.
Okay, well, okay. So today's topic is Ridley, R.I.D.L.E.Y. And you chose this topic, Jim. So could you share what this means to you and why you picked it for today?
Okay. I picked this topic because of the state I was kind of in in early parts of January and February. Ridley, hi, my name is Ridley. I'm an alcoholic. And Ridley stands for restless, irritable, discontent, lazy, egotistical, and yappy. So I don't like where I am. I'm not willing to do anything about it. My ego says, oh, I can get through this on my own. And I'm yappy. I'm complaining about it everywhere. R.I.D., restless, irritable, discontent. These are the things well described in the early part of the big book, steps 1 and step 2. And these are the things I must get rid of. If I'm restless, why? I'm just sitting in my own head. If I'm irritable, then I think the ego is starting, why me, poor me? Well, you know what happens. Poor me, poor me, poor me, another one, and away we go. And discontent, it's not going my way. I'm not getting what I want, or what I'm getting I don't want. You know, um, if you look in the 12 and 12 under step 7, second last paragraph, uh, to me, it's game, set, and match. We are afraid of not getting what we want, afraid of losing what we do have. And that self-centered fear is the central seed of, plant that in the manure of my soul, and away we go, right? Good things will not happen. Weeds will grow. So I picked this because I was feeling, what more do I need? Like, why am I, eh, eh, you know, running at half
Yeah.
steam, putting in half efforts, um, treating people close to me in a maybe not a kind, loving, and tolerant way. Not accepting life as life's going on. What more do I need? And going to meetings, being with my people every morning is great, but there's more to it than that. Number one thing, and I believe it to this day, it's not the quantity of sobriety you got, it's the quality. Now, you have to have some quality to have some quantity, but you also can't dine out on yesterday's sobriety. I got to keep doing more. So since I've come back from Mexico, where I met Milan, I've had someone ask me to be their service sponsor. So I go to my meeting every morning. We had one day last fall where we had 34 people in the room. 20 had less than a year. 5 had more than 2 years, and 5 or 6 had the 1 to 2 to 3 category. And it was like, I go because I want to show gratitude for the old timers that were in existence when I was that age. I also want to share the things that I may have seen, heard, or done. I've heard it cheekily mentioned that, one of these meetings will save your life, but the other ones may save someone else's life. So listen up anyway and share it when you get it. Someone will say something, and I can twig the memory banks and take the Wayback Machine to a situation in sobriety or out before sobriety. That's helpful.
Awesome. I love that. Okay, so I'm going to start with the questions, and what I'll do is I will ask Andrew. Then the same question's going to come to you. Then I'm going to answer it. Then Andrew will ask you. Then he'll ask me. He'll answer his own. Then you'll ask me. Then Andrew, and we'll just continue in that fashion throughout the program. Okay, Andrew. A member once said, restless one day, I felt I'd better do some 12-step work. Maybe I should take out some insurance against a slip. How do you see helping another addict or alcoholic as keeping you straight?
Well, that's a great question. First off, thank you, Jim, for being here. It's really special that you're here with us today. Really appreciate your time. And I want to really quick relate to him real quick because you hit a
Yeah.
couple of things that really I love, Jim. Because and Milan hit me with when he told me about this podcast. He said we were going to get along very well, and I think we absolutely will. You started off by saying you make a lot of meetings. I make a lot of meetings, man. A whole lot of meetings because meetings keep you clean, right? It's very hard to use or drink or do anything in a meeting. And so you talked about leaning into the things you can't explain. I talk about that all the time. I have to lean into those things that I can't explain, right? As I get clean and those things happen in my life, I've got to lean into those things that I can't explain. And then you talked about the ego and pride, right? The ego, what does ego do? It edges God out, right? There's your ego, it edges God out, and then your pride and ego. And then what does pride stand for? One of the primary reasons I die early. I'm telling you, it's one of those things where a lot of things resonated. And then you said something about yesterday, yesterday's shower won't keep me, yesterday's not shower is not going to keep me clean today. Rent's due every day, right?
Rinse and repeat.
Um, it's due every day. Like we have to pay that rent every day. And then that gratitude towards the predecessors, man, I cannot say that enough in any platform how much I truly am grateful for the predecessors that prayed me into these rooms because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that. Right. Like I talk about it all the time where I'm so grateful and lucky that when I was homeless, right? That one of those prayers that one of my predecessors and one of those OGs essentially, when y'all pray, one of those hit my direction and scoop me right out, man. And I can't take the chance of that not be like that happening again, right? I can't go back out and chance one of those prayers not hitting in my way. So I'm so grateful for the people that came before me in these rooms. So I'm glad you hit on a lot of those things and I really relate to you when as it comes to that. Um, and so you talked about the restless and taking out insurance essentially. We had Brandy on here who talked about taking and her sponsor on here talking about taking out insurance in situations where if she's in a social situation, she's gonna let everybody there know that she is an alcoholic and she and then it lets everybody there know what her boundaries are and that's her insurance in that situation. It's a pretty cool spin on it. But being restless, you got to get some, you got to get sleep. That you hit on the 12 steps in that question too. If you're not doing, if you're in a 12-step program and you're not a reading the literature and b doing the 12 steps of that 12-step program, what are you doing in that program? Like what are we doing here? So we can all cruise around and try to sit in the shadows of these rooms and of these meetings and say, hey, I'm going to meetings and I'm recovering and all that good stuff, but what are you really doing to for yourself? Because we've been killing ourselves for so long, right? It's about getting ourselves right, and when we get ourselves right, everything else comes home after that. And so it's being able to weather those storms, and having a program in your life that you can walk into any situation and have confidence that you can figure it out. And if not, you've got a good support network that can help you out with that, right? Maybe point you in the right direction or point you in the right direction to somebody who might be able to help you. So yeah, I feel at home in these meetings, man. I stay in these meetings. It keeps me meetings are my insurance. If recovery is my roadmap, these meetings are my gas stations, right? This is where I fill up in these meetings, so that I can keep going and I can stay ahead of anything that's coming my way, and I can protect my recovery at all costs because I got to know, staying clean must come first. Like I cannot put if as soon as I use a drug or drink any substance, my choice goes away. I don't have a choice at that point. So as long as I don't use, I can continue to have that choice. And Mr. Jim, like freedom arrives at my doorstep in the form of choices every single morning. Like I have a choice today. And I wouldn't give that shit up for the world. Excuse my language. I would not give that stuff up for the world because I used to wake up every morning not knowing my ass from my face. I didn't know what up from down was, didn't care, And so I now live my life with spiritual principles. I wake up and my big thing is love, Jim. Love and remaining humble and teachable, because as soon as I have this thing figured out, I'm done. So I always have something to learn from somebody, anybody, somebody just brand new coming into these rooms, or somebody that's got 50 years in these rooms. I have something to learn from them. And so I have to remember that. I got to remain teachable. So thank you for hitting on those things. I threw a couple acronyms at you because I didn't want to get that party started yet, but I heard you're an acronym kind of guy. But I just wanted to throw those couple out there to get it started. But thank you for coming in here. Love the topic, and that's kind of my answer for that. So
You guys are my acronym brothers. One down south and one in Canada. Okay, do you want me to repeat the question, Jim?
I certainly. How did you know I was going to ask that? I'm an
Because
old
all my
fart now.
brothers want me to.
he's part of the part of the crew. Part of the
Yeah,
crew.
that's right. It's
So-
easy to get distracted inside answers on the show. That's what I find. So I always even repeat it for myself. A member once said, restless one day, I felt I'd better do some 12-step work. Maybe I should take out some insurance against a slip. How do you see helping another addict or alcoholic as keeping you straight?
Okay, so can't talk right now. Lately, I have been noticing who's missing from the room. And I ask about them, and invariably they show up the next day. Also, too, in AA, if you don't make calls, you don't get calls. So if you are thinking of someone, give them a call. You never know. Like, I mean, I drove by a member's place and I haven't seen him for a couple of weeks, so I'm going to give him a call later. My sponsor right now, he's a gentleman. He's in his mid-70s and he's having some health issues, and so I don't see him as much. So I got to keep calling him. Just my phone call to him means someone is thinking of him. I know people in this program and outside of this program. People who pray have good things happen to them. People who are prayed for have good things happen to them.
Yes.
Or bad things don't happen, or they happen less than they could have. Um, it's a form of mercy. But yeah, to take out some insurance, phone somebody. Our numbers are dwindling right now. We have about 30 in the room. We're down about 15 or 16. So who are the 14 that are missing? And maybe give them a call. If they're in and out on a somewhat regular basis, okay, maybe then there's only 3 or 4 that I should maybe think of. I have a service position that's quite demanding, and my greatest fear is coming true. My procrastination is going to bite me in the ass this weekend, big time. And but doing the service work, I mean, I spent the last 3 nights going to just 6 or 7 hours on bookkeeping. This past weekend, I drove from Toronto to Ottawa, and I was the only member there, the only family member there for my cousin. I was at my uncle's funeral. That was a service to him, and it helped him greatly. It's not just the people in these rooms that you can help. It's being kind and courteous. It's being courteous as you drive. It's being courteous when you're in a mall. Let people go ahead of you. It's just doing little things like the next door neighbor. I take his garbage bins in on Tuesday mornings for him. It can be little things, but it does give satisfaction and knowing that you contributed in a useful way. And that's the part that keeps me sober.
Awesome.
Can I hit one thing real quick before you transfer over? Because look, another acronym: push, push, push. Pray until something happens. You talked about prayer. Push, push, push. Pray until something happens. My sponsor says it all the time.
Yeah. We had the 2005 World Conference here in Toronto. Flags of the nations come out. A gentleman from Croatia was invited to do it for Croatia, and they couldn't find it. They could not find a Croatian flag. This is 1995, so it's pretty well a new country. So he comes out like this, and that gentleman's acronym is PLAB, pray like a bastard.
I love it. I love that.
Yeah,
I love
and you
that.
know,
I'm writing it down.
um, I've had situations like I lost my mom 3 years ago, and I mentioned Mercy. She started complaining of back pains, and it was a melanoma that had gone internal and started metastasizing. That was St. Patrick's Day. She was gone Mother's Day, so she didn't suffer much. You know, I had to pray like hell what to do. I had to pray to pick up the phone and say the words to the hospital, make her palliative. The day I did that, I was speaking in Sacramento on Zoom. So yeah, um,
That's tough.
prayer and doing something today will take you out of the crap that you think you're in.
We're not it,
Yes.
guys. We're not
Yep.
it, guys. We are not it.
Okie dokie.
That was
That was
beautiful.
beautiful that you shared that, Jim, because I think that people need to hear that, there's still struggles inside our programs, but that you're getting through them, you
Yeah,
know, like we can have sad moments and not necessarily be sad people,
true.
you know. Um so for myself, how do I see helping another addict or alcoholic is keeping me straight? Well, like going right off the Ridley that Jim was talking about, let's hit that egotistical. Like we're selfish, self-serving, self-centered people. And, my experience has been with service is that they are truly moments that I'm actually not just dwelling inside my own shit, you know, and stewing inside my self-centered actions. And service, when I'm having those aha moments with a sponsee or with my sponsor, like and truly I agree with what Jim said, that service is all those little acts in life. Like you can't be parading through the program talking about service and then, your mom be sitting or your
It's a
neighbor be
posture of the
sitting
heart.
there needing help,
Yeah.
like you've got to service starts the moment your eyes open and should end the moment your eyes close. And trying to maintain that state of mind will inevitably take you out of yourself more than anything else. I truly believe that myself. So, my answer's a little bit shorter, but I think that for me, that is the root of the beauty of service. And to be quite honest, there is no greater feeling than a retrospective realization of the positive effect of some active service, like not doing it because you think that effect will happen, but seeing, like, like I've helped people before and then seeing tears in their eyes, and then at that moment realized, wow, like I'm so glad I did that, because sometimes it might just be that phone call like you were talking about, Jim. Like some people need someone to care about them that day,
Yeah.
you know and that's one of the things, is that you know you could be inside this program 50 years and you still might be lonely or be needing someone to ask you, how are you doing today?
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay, I'm going to pass it to Andrew. You got a question for Jim?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, so I was gonna just ask you, what are your strategies for staying enthusiastic about your program? Because I know we need to stay enthusiastic about this thing or it gets stale. So
Hey Jim, I see your camera
Nope.
slipping down. If we can get, just, yeah, put your stuff there. We go. Boom. Awesome.
Yeah, there we go. What do I do to keep enthusiastic? Try something new. Um, I mockingly say, I attend a group that, how do I upgrade on a Rolls Royce? But I do need to hear other voices. I do need to hear other uh, ideals and things. So I go to local meetings. My first 20 years of sobriety was in Toronto, where I could walk out from my apartment and go to the corner, and there was at 7 o'clock at night, I'm going to wait 3 minutes for a bus in any one direction, and there's two meetings in each direction. So I don't have that out here in Oakville, but I do get enthused when I see the faces of those people when I go to an assembly or an area committee meeting. People I haven't seen for a while, knowing that I'm going to see them is it inspires me to keep going. And try and read some new literature. You know, there's go to the grapevine.org or AA.org and just play around in there for an hour or two. There's just so much stuff. Trying to keep up with everything that's going on, man. It's a lot. But it's going to roundups and hearing stories, going to regional forums. I remember being so regional forum in Nova Scotia. I'm going to be DCM next term, and I hear a story from the AA trustee at large for Canada about her adventures in AA, and I tell some of these stories, and people ask me to tell the story again, and that enthuses me, you know, about how we come together and listening to this. I mean, even in my personal things, I chaired a meeting on the third anniversary of my brother's death. I got a phone call. I'm 10 minutes in the meeting. I got a phone call. My dad has finally passed away from a stroke the same day. 3 years prior, I held the phone to my brother's ear and let my mom encourage them to say their last words to him because, you know, things like that, things like the outpouring of care and affection when at work, I just started a brand new job, and 6 weeks later, I'm taking time off to go to a funeral in Kitchener. It's a snowstorm. It's a week before Christmas, and people are showing up from my past. That, you know, those things stay with me and they enthuse me. Can I do things like that? Possibly. Again, I have to be willing to stay connected, stay in the middle. I mean, R.I.D.L.E.Y also means that I'm not in the middle anymore. I'm heading towards the edges. And, you know, when the pack runs and you're off on the edges, the old and afraid get picked off pretty easily. You know.
I like this guy, Milan. I like this guy a
I
lot.
knew you
Yeah.
Got to stay in the group, stay out of the grip, man. I'm
Stay in the
telling you.
groove, right?
Look,
I heard
stay
the
in the middle of
expression.
the herd like a penguin, man. Just stay right up in
Yeah.
the middle, man.
That's
Telling you.
right. Don't have to be leader of the pack, but don't stay too far behind them.
That's it, buddy. That's it. You're speaking my language, man.
Okay.
Are you finished there, Jim?
I'm done. Yeah, yeah. I can't think of
Okay.
any more.
Okay, can I get the question again, Andrew?
Oh
I
yeah,
was way
absolutely.
into the answer.
Yeah, I was too, man. That was beautiful. So what strategies do you have for staying enthusiastic about your program today, Milan?
So recently, like I was just down south. I was attending every different meeting that I could physically get to. And then I also started a beach meeting there. And what that really did was it had put a lot of fresh information and people into my heart so that I was able to just kind of see a different direction inside my own personal program. You know, I had a realization when I was down there that it was time for me to do another step 4, and that so you know I'm definitely, you know, seeing that there's more than a step 10 still sitting there after peeling some of the layers of that onion. And so being remaining active on my step work, remaining active with my sponsees, because no person is the same. Like we're all dynamic beings, first of all, and changing. And you know, as things are progressing with the sponsees, so is the challenges that I have in maybe, you know, what I'm presenting to them for how to help them along through their steps. And for myself as well, I find this podcast great for that, just for inspiring me to, you know, when every time we have a different topic, I'm trying to do some research on it before we come. And then that kind of keeps me active and looking in many different directions, because I'm usually not the one who picks the topics. So when that comes up, I find that quite interesting to do. And then I've decided and started to go to some smaller local meetings that I just wasn't before, and since I've been back here, and that's been really interesting. I mean, you know, you want some fun characters go to a meeting in person and just like it's like honestly I just love the variety of characters and and there was like 41 years to 4 weeks inside the meeting last night, and it was great. I really had a good time. And then one of the meetings is going over the new AA plain language book. It's like a big book study on that, and so I really wanted to check that out. So once a week, I'll be kind of sitting with a group and going through that as well. So it's constantly like what is it they say, like some of the old timers and some of the speaker tapes, they talk about being a seeker, that there's that you should have a certain level of satisfaction in life, but that there should always be an uncomfortability of growth, you know, and
Yeah,
and
man.
see and seeking that uncomfortability, is something that I want to do, like I it's not like I'm like, oh, I can play guitar as good as I want to play guitar forever. It's like every time I learn something on guitar, I learn that there's something more to learn on guitar. And the same thing inside the program for me is that every time I learn anything, I realize what an infant I am. And I think that it's, remaining inquisitive and curious. Inside my addiction and my alcoholism, I know there was a few year period where I lost my curiosity, where it was like I was just on get by mode. And because it's like really you can get by in life, but it's like just the same way that a stagnant turd sits in a toilet bowl that isn't flushed. Like, I don't sit there and float, but like for me, I just feel alive when I'm growing, and that's what I want to do. I hope that answers it for you, Andrew.
Absolutely does. Absolutely does. Yeah, so in terms of what I do to try to stay enthusiastic about my approach, I heard like the disease can't hit a moving target. So we got to kind of stay moving all the time, right? Um and you look, you're gonna love this one, Jim. You might even want to write this one down. You know what the steps stand for? The steps stand for solution to every problem solved, right? And then think about this. What happens if you're not using the steps? You're nuts. NUTS, not using the steps. You're nuts. What's wrong with you? So steps, solutions to every problem solved. And if you're not using them, you're nuts, man, because you're not using the steps. So you talk about staying enthusiastic about my program, man, like doing step work and staying active in my step work uh keeps everything present, fresh, and lively in my brain, right? Like the working steps allows you to think about who you are, what you are, why you're doing it every single day. And in a just for today program, that's what I need, to keep me on my toes. I have a disease, a dis-ease, right? A disease of dis-ease thinking, right? My brain is not my best friend. And I refer to this a lot, like half of my brain's consistently selling BS and the other side is consistently buying that BS. And so I gotta like have a midline, or like a firewall, and that's my recovery today. Um, I'm never gonna find help like hanging out with helpless people, right? And I'm never gonna find hope like hanging out with hopeless people. So when I come into these rooms, and I gotta watch who I surround myself with, man, because my best critical thinking got me here. And now I'm grateful for that today, looking back at it. But um, I gotta choose people that love me unconditionally, and that show me that same love that I give them, because they'll call me on my BS, man, and it's about keeping me alive. It's not about co-signing my bullshit today. you know um it's complacency kills, man. My sponsor even says, when you're dealing with some complacency, place that ass in the seat, right? Complacency, place that ass in the seat. If you're dealing with some complacency, place that ass in the seat. And it's a good way to think about it. And we have and another thing that keeps me enthusiastic, I got to stay away from those common things that are going to push me to relapse. And we have an acronym in our fellowship called HALT. I don't know if you ever heard it. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. You know, those are the most common stressors that get us back into using drugs. So I keep that one on the top of my mind at all times. It keeps me enthusiastic, and you know, enthusiasm is like the common cold. Like I gotta stay around it to keep that common cold, you know, because if I go away from it, I might get healthy and then I might start using drugs again, right? Like it's one of those kind of things. So you know, I leaned into this program, man. I have learned to adapt my life to this program. I'm not going to adapt the program to my life. And so you know, we have a lot of different ways that we keep this thing really fresh, man. And I throw myself into service work. You know, service work is a posture of the heart, which ties back into love for me. You know, I chair a lot of meetings. I do a lot of service, and that's a way for me to show love and see the new people coming in and hear those stories every day. Like if I don't hear the stories of the Wendy's that go 32 years and then within a week she's living under a bridge, relapse, I'm not gonna know that 3 years clean. I don't got this thing, you know. So it keeps it um you know, a tangible thing where like you know, I'm no different than anybody else. And so I know that my nervous system and my own way of thinking is going to revert back to that old familiar chaos area, right? I used to be comfortable in that familiar chaos. And so I'm teaching myself today to learn to kind of lean into that unfamiliar peace. As an addict, I don't know what peace is. So I have to lean into that unfamiliar piece, kind of like how I leaned into my disease when I was getting into it. Man, it wasn't that comfortable getting into it, but I leaned into it anyways, right? So I got to lean out of it, and so I choose that unfamiliar piece, which keeps things enthusiastic, right? It's new. I'm doing new things. I'm trying new things, and look, if I try something and I don't succeed with it, Mr. Jim, like I'm just shows up trying. Like I don't get down on myself today from my mistakes, right? It just shows that I'm trying. And I'm trying a new way of life. And I can't, I gotta be okay with that. I gotta be okay with that because I'm working a program and I'm staying clean. And that's the most important thing. So and if nothing changes, my clean time will. So I come in here, they say come as you are, but don't stay as you are. So I came as I was, but I started working on myself, man, and I've gotten everything I wanted in my life and more. And one of our pieces of literature says something about where if you're willing to move towards your dreams, a lot of times we blow right through them. I'm sure you can attest to that. So that's my answer. Mhm.
Thank you, Andrew. And now, Jim, do you have a question for me? Oh, you're muted right now, Jim.
I'm muted. Thank you. Yeah,
There you go.
the noise in the background is ceased at the same time. Excellent. I got a few more. The question for you is, what does conscious contact with your higher power feel like?
Ooh, feel
That
like
could
it. I
be,
like
and
how
maybe
you
we
said
might
I
want to do
love
that one
that.
again for another podcast.
no.
Mhm.
I like that. I like because we spoke at that meeting that one day about it being the God of our experience versus the God of our understanding.
This is the gentleman you were talking about. He came on and talked about you talking about that, Mr. Jim. It was pretty cool. It was pretty awesome.
Okay.
Um,
That wasn't me though, I
so
don't think.
my okay, I'm gonna give a few adjectives and then I'm gonna explain them, I think. Because I'm just gonna kind of flip through my own recovery experience. I would say relief, contentment, serenity, love, acceptance, and like a sort of cross between hope and faith, depending on the moment. And it all started with my surrender. I felt immense relief from the hamster wheel of my addiction when I surrendered and I entered the program. Like literally my feeling to use and to drink was gone. And that much of my brain, like I swear it was like 30 to 70% of my brain was on this hamster wheel of gotta have more, gotta get more, gotta like, and then while consuming, be thinking I need more, and then thinking there better be more for later, budgeting for more, and then more, like, and so the first moment of surrender and that whole thought process was gone was an unbelievable change for me in where it took me to like that's it. I'm not on that wheel anymore. Along with that
Great.
came some silence and some peace in my brain and contentment in life. And inside the step work, I received the first shame and guilt-free days of my life in 51 years of that point of coming in. And so I finally felt serenity, like I was always 0 or 11 to 14 Milan. And now I'm really in love with this 6 to 7, I call it, inside my life that, and inside that, there's also just a feeling of love and acceptance that, that there is some kind of support in this universe towards doing the right thing. Like when I'm doing the right thing, I'm not I'm not feeling alone. That like I do when I'm being sneaky and just not living with the principles. And so there's a big relief in that. And I think that's kind of a good synopsis for me to be what I can verbalize at this point. I love that question because it has oh, and then there's the hope and faith. Sorry, I'll finish with that I'd said. Like it started with hope that maybe there's something here that can work with me. And it's like that feeling of hope goes, boom. Oh, I have a little more faith because this just worked. Oh, I have this serenity. That's a little bit more faith. I'm feeling this love. There's a little more faith. And so, and that hope and faith, honestly, it has at this point in my life, there's like ebbs and flows because I still feel like I'm struggling with a lot of my defects and 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 gosh, some days it feels like on top of the world, and some days it feels like I'm swimming waist deep in them, and it's real hard to wade through. And so, yeah, hope that answers your question, Jim.
I love that. I love that.
Okay.
You want to ask one more time? I'm pretty sure I know, but
Sure. What does connection to your higher power feel like?
yeah. So that conscious contact, wow, it's a feeling I can't really describe, right? We try to put feelings on it, and the only thing that I can really the closest terms that I can really come up to it is unconditional love. That unconditional love feeling that I feel from that higher power of mine when I realized when I was praying to this thing and when I realized it started talking back to me, my recovery changed. I was told to pray like uncomfortably until something happens, push, 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 pray until something happens. And I did that. I even at the beginning of when I was getting out of the rehab facility I was in, I had somebody tell me, if you don't know how to pray, put your shoes and your cigarettes under your bed as far as you can. Get on your hands and knees because you got to get out of your bed. And then while you're on your hands and knees looking for your cigarettes and your shoes, pray. Pray before you get up. Um, it was kind of corny, but I tried it. It was the start of me trying to pray as somebody who wasn't uh, in that fog of addiction anymore. And so I did that, man. That conscious contact piece is so important to me now. Um, a lot of us do a lot of future tripping, you know. We worry about all this stuff that might happen in the future, like what if we get this job or this house or this girlfriend or this wife or whatever. And I've realized like 95% of that stuff, A, is not going to happen. B, when it happens, when does it happen? It doesn't happen when you think it's going to happen. And then on top of that, it happens in the present moment. Like when it happens in the present moment. What are you worrying about it now? You're stealing away from the present moment, which is telling me that I'm not consciously contacted. If I'm not present, I'm not connected. And so why are we future tripping about all that stuff that's probably not even gonna freaking happen? And when it does, it doesn't happen when you think it's gonna happen. Let's stop worrying about it right now. And then obviously the past is the past, right? Like no amount of regret is going to change the past. No amount of anxiety is going to change the future, right? But like any amount of gratitude changes the present moment, man. That's where I try to stay is in that gratitude spot, right? Like because I heard a grateful addict doesn't use. And so I try to stay grateful and present because I know if I'm staying present and I'm connected and I'm praying, man, I pray. I don't think about when I need to pray or if it's the right time to pray. I just pray. And I have another addict that we pray like religiously, not in a religious fashion, but like religiously every single morning, every single night. And it's a very special, it's a very special thing for me. And look, you talked about serenity, Milan. We talked about this the other day. Serenity comes when you trade expectations for acceptance, right? And that's a big thing with me, man. Like I like my expectations of other people, expectations of myself. I gotta set realistic goals that so that I can be proud of myself when I achieve them. But staying connected to him, I gotta let my ego and pride out of the way. The ego edges got out every single time. And that's just not a fancy acronym. That's like real talk there. That ego will edge got out every time. And my pride, and I gotta remain humble. Obviously putting any kind of substance in your body keeps you completely unconnected from that. Yeah, understanding is that first step to acceptance, which without acceptance I can't recover. And I got to stay connected or I'm not going to do anything around here. So yeah, I love that, man. Yeah, I think that's my answer. I can keep it short and sweet on that one.
And now, Jim, do you want to ask
Okay,
yourself your
yeah,
question?
I'll ask myself my question. What the hell am I doing? No. What does it feel like? Um, I have noticed there are times where I get a physical tingling around either ear. Not quite the same halo effect as other stuff gives you, but I get this tingling and I have to recognize right away what have I been thinking and what's going to happen right here, right now. I do notice lately, I get the right idea ahead of time now. And if I follow it, it usually works out. Not like the old days where aren't I great if my idea works, but it's your fault if it doesn't. Um, example, the inspiration to tell my mom and dad, Bob's going, here's your chance, here's your last chance, you know, stuff like that. Being in the right place at the right time. Uh, the phone rings and I answer it. One time I'm on the bus and I just said to God, I got to do something. I got to get some more income because I'm slowly sliding away and, expenses are killing me. And the phone rings while I'm on the bus and I'm having a conversation. Here's a guy that's almost a year. Um, he's right out of The Sopranos in every respect. Looks like Big Pussy. And he says, the cops are here. Please say yes. But if I can't find a place to stay tonight, I'm going to jail. He stayed at my place for a month. He cooked. He was a chef, and we ate well. We went to lots of meetings, and I got the honor of giving him his 1 year medallion. So those kind of things, they just don't happen, man. I don't have to get the fingerprint kit out anymore. I know who it is. It's Gus. Who's Gus? Gentle, understanding spirit. The guy upstairs steering. That's what I call my higher power, right? What does it feel emotionally like? I'm going to be taken care of. This is going to work out. Yeah, I learned to rely on my instincts a little bit more because I know they're not misguided or they're not wrapped in self-centered motives. I continually ask myself the question, what action right here, right now, cue the Van Halen, will create the maximum benefit for the most number of people, me included. I'm not at the front of the line, but I'm part of this posse. That's what it feels like.
Can I hit on one thing?
Yeah,
Look, God, grow or die. You know, my God, what stands for, you called it Gus.
yeah,
God, grow or die. Get off
yeah,
drugs. The great outdoors, gift
yeah,
of
great outdoors.
desperation, or group of drug addicts.
So if I want to go on drinking, I'll get on with dying,
Yes, yes. Go on to get
or
on with
I can
dying.
get the gift of desperation,
Get on with dying. That's a new one, man. I
and
love
hang out
you. I
with a
love
group
you.
of drunks.
Yes.
And my higher, nature can be your higher power. So it means get outdoors daily. You know,
Milan, this is my guy. This is my guy,
yeah,
Milan.
yeah, yeah. Oh, did you
Oh
see? I
yes,
sent you a couple other ones.
yes.
You were talking about. You inspired me to think of denial. Don't even notice I am lying.
Don't even notice I'm lying. And look, my sponsor says this. It's not just a river in Egypt. Denial
Yeah.
is not just a river in Egypt, right? It's a
Well,
real
hell, I could be
thing.
the Olympic swim coach for Egypt.
I love this
Anyway,
man. Oh, it's
I
awesome.
love you guys.
You knew
It's
this
like
was going to
I,
happen, Milan,
I,
didn't you? You knew this
I
was going
was
to turn
just
yeah,
into a
he
like
did.
firestorm of.
He
I just
warned
felt
me.
right at home with Jim right
We'll
away.
be
I
here
was
for
like,
5 hours. We'll be here for 5 hours. Zoom's going to like cut us off in like 5 hours because we're just going to keep going. It's so awesome.
Yeah.
okie dokie. I've got a question for you, Andrew.
Yes, sir.
It's got a long intro as usual
Of
because I'm
course.
good. Yep. So close your eyes and come on the journey. We begin to see that all people, including ourselves, are to some extent emotionally ill as well as frequently wrong. And then we approach true tolerance and see what real love for our fellows actually means. It will become more and more evident as we go forward that it's pointless to become angry or to get hurt by people who, like us, are suffering from the pains of growing up. How do you bring love and tolerance into your life with others?
Mm. Well, you asked the right person about that, right?
Oh, I literally wrote that one for you.
Ooh, love, man. I bring love and tolerance to everything. Well, the tolerance is a little bit harder than the love piece. I have when I got into these rooms, I had no idea what love was. Well, I thought I did, and I didn't. And y'all told me to sit down and let us love you until you learn how to love yourself. And damn if y'all didn't do that. And y'all poured love on me, unconditional love. I would come back the next day and y'all would call me by my name and you would be so grateful that I was here. And I never felt that before. I never felt that before. Um, and so love, and here we go with the acronyms. Love stands for Let's Our Voices Encourage, right? And then one that I came up with is love is limitless, it's openness, it's virtuous, and it's expressiveness. So you're limitless without boundaries, openness, obviously, and then you have a virtuous, high, showing high moral standards, and expressiveness. This is what we're doing in these rooms. We're talking with each other and expressing love to each other. And I say this a lot, love and hope are the only two spiritual principles that we can actually give to each other, Mr. Jim. Like I can't give you honesty. Like I can't give you open-mindedness. I can't give you willingness, but I can give you brotherly love, right? And I can give you hope, which is what I get in these rooms is I get hope that like I can do this. You know, early on in my recovery, I would not still be here if I did not get hope from somebody that I saw that was in a worse off position than me in my active addiction and thriving in recovery. That's what gave me that initial hope shot that I needed. Um, and so, you know, I understand now that as long as I'm staying connected, that love that I'm getting from him, I can portray that out onto other people. And so when somebody comes in and they're hurting, my love, you know, you come in here and we share honestly. Honest sharing is the antidote to our disease thinking. It allows my heart to connect with yours. And I can even show you love without saying anything to you. It's like a feeling, that love channel. I don't have to think process my way into it. You know, when I'm doing something that I love or doing something for somebody that I love, it's not stress to me, right? It's passion. I'm not worrying about how long it's taking me to do it. But if something's stressful, you know, if it's something that I don't enjoy, like it's a stressful thing that I'm doing. And so I love everybody, man. Look, I don't like a lot of people, and I'm starting. Look, I don't like everybody because and I'm starting to run into this because I do go to a lot of meetings, and if you make a lot of meetings, you just run into people that you don't fancy very much, right? Whatever, for whatever reason. But I love everybody. I genuinely love everybody because in one way or another, you're helping me recover, right? You are helping me recover. If I don't like every aspect about you, there's something that I'm seeing in you that I don't like about myself deep down, right? So I love you because you're helping me see that in myself. And so I express love to people that even though they might have wronged me or whatever, like I kill them with love. You talk about killing with kindness, I kill them with love. And and sometimes that gets misconstrued. You know, we are all men and women in these rooms, and I show a lot of love, and you have women that might misconstrue that, but like you know, the traditions run pretty strong in here. And so I spread that love like a wildfire, man, because I was given that. And I'm told that if I don't give that away, I'm not going to be able to keep it. And so the more I give away that love that I'm extremely good at giving away, the more I receive it. So the more fruitful I am in my endeavors as it relates to like loving other individuals and bringing them in, and I'm kind of like the love mascot in my meetings, man. Like Milan.
I'm smiling. It's the truth.
It's just you know I do it to the point where like even at my workplace, we talk about outside of the fellowship service, like there's men at my workplace. I work in an eye doctor's office. I'm an optician, so but there's just rigid people that work around there that men that had never said I loved you to another man in their life, and we're all I have just spread those words around where we tell each other, man, like I love you, man, we'll see you tomorrow. Not in that weird, hey bro, I love you, bro, just the hey, I love you, drive safe, you know, and we'll see you tomorrow. And that's just a different way to live, right? To walk into a, you know, service is love. Being of service to somebody gets me outside of my head, right? If I want to get it outside of my head, go do something nice and loving for somebody. Go give that homeless man $1, you know. And that's how I show love, man. As long as I'm showing unconditional love, I don't care the outcome because I know I'm doing the right thing and I've done the right thing from my heart. And regardless of if it comes out negative or positive, if it comes out negative, I just know that God has something on the other side for me and it wasn't meant for me, right? Like I'm almost grateful today for my closed doors because I realize that now that I have a God in my understanding in my life that door wouldn't have been closed if he didn't want it to be closed. And he's got something on the other side for me, right on the other side. So the more love I spread, the more love I receive. And I'm gonna always stay on the love piece, man, because um you know, it lets our voices encourage, man. And love is something that love is the most powerful drug in the world. Love is the most powerful spiritual principle that we have in this program or our program as well. So I will not fight anybody. No, yeah,
Acceptance.
except don't acceptance. Not, come on, it eats that for lunch. Love you, man. I'll pass it.
Okay, Jim, would you like me to repeat the question?
No, basically, what you described is almost word for word the sick man's prayer. Um, not everybody is as well as they think they are, whether they're inside the rooms or not. But as a person who's been inside the rooms for a while, I am not as imperfect as I've been led to believe, and that was my biggest hurdle in the early days. Um, to borrow from Celine Dion and Blue Rodeo, Because You Love Me Until I Could Be Myself Again. Those are two songs, different titles plugged in together. And it's true. I remember early days. Um, if you've ever been through a divorce, there is some viciousness. I'm not going to go into any more detail, but there's some viciousness, and it really affected me, and it was designed to drive me back out. And I came to meetings and I met a lot of people in the early days, and they loved me till I could love myself again. That love allows me to take off the mask. The mask that says on the inside, zero. You wouldn't like me if you really knew me. That's the side I see. But the side you see has got a big smile, and it's the one I want you to see, even though it may not be real. The mask goes away. I can be me. And if I unburden myself of all the crap, emotionally speaking, I can begin to love myself, and that has to happen first. And if I have that, I can be the person I'm supposed to be, and that will draw people to me, and I can, I can share me, and that's an act of love. And um, the people I wanted to slug, now I want to hug. Uh, the
Love that.
going to meetings, service outside the group, service in the group, at your home group, and we meet every day. So it is family. We had COVID and we went to Zoom and we picked up people from all around the world. And we had a meeting a couple years back when one of them came in from the Dominican Republic to get her 10-year. And some of the internationals came in with it, and we had 5 people there sharing an Airbnb in the West End of Burlington. Maine, Philadelphia, Boston, Dominican, and I have never seen or felt anything like it in my entire life. The atmosphere, the pure energy in the room was palpable. I mean, you could see the walls moving. There was so much energy. We have now gone to a situation at our group where we have a birthday meeting on the first Saturday of the following month, and we replicate that buzz, that pure humanity, pure unconditional love again every month. And we'll have 65 people in the room, family and friends come in, and it's great. But that's the AA world. It's the other 23 hours, right? The other 23. What am I doing there? Sorry for moving around, but I have to share the house. And Madam just came home from her exercise class, and so she can use the blender. It's not too loud down. I've come downstairs. But it's, I got to think of other people. That's a quiet act that I can do. I can do something, and I don't have to say anything. I can just do it out of respect and love and admiration. It doesn't have to be big grand gestures either. Little details do matter big time. But the sick man prayer, yeah, not everybody is as well as they can be every day, inside or outside these rooms. I'm not as well as I could be some days, and that's why I become Ridley. I'm not Jim anymore. I'm Ridley. And which one of those 6 things, or it's like a box of Lego that you put the colors together and you can build some real good monsters. Put the letters together, you can build some real good monsters.
Oh yeah.
The end.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Well, that was great. And yeah,
I had
respect
goosebumps, man, listening to you, man.
I've had goosebumps a few times in this podcast today, actually.
Yeah.
It's been a really great one, and I want to thank you again, Jim, for coming on.
Anytime, bud.
For myself, I would say that this question was designed for me for my current struggles, really. Like I feel that the self-acceptance, first of all, is something that I'm still battling with. Like it's not like I did my first set of steps and I'm like, Milan's the best fucking guy ever. Milan's still making lots of mistakes. Milan's still struggling in a million directions. And when I'm not loving me, I truly believe that it's impossible for me to love you a ton. And you hear that saying all the time, and that's not just a saying. I think that it's a real, if I'm sitting there judging me, guess what? I'm in a judging mood. My brain is in a judging state. And then I'm probably judging other people as well. And, I've been praying on it a lot. How do I bring more love and tolerance into my life with others? I try to bring it in for myself, and I've been praying about it a lot. Trying to have have these shortcomings taken away by my higher power. It's something that I've been doing while I've been exercising. A lot of prayer on the removal of these shortcomings, and then in addition to that, is more step work. For me to go back and be going for a deeper dive into things here is really something that I see essential as helping me move forward. And I didn't have any tools before I came to the program, so there was just a delusionary denial of what was really happening in my life and in my relationships. But the problem is now is, I liken it to looking in a window. Once I peek in that window and see that room, and that room is my defects and shortcomings, I can't unsee it. And now having these tools to start working on it, I can't pretend that like if I looked in that window and the room is green and I want a nice, peaceful sky blue room, and I'm looking here and these tools are my rollers and my paint, I can't pretend that I can't go and paint that room. And I'm not just going to stand there and complain about the color forever in that respect. And so for me, it is, it's a combination of me and my higher power working together to try and help me out on all that. So, yeah. And Andrew, you got a
Love it.
question for
Yeah, I
Jim?
do. Absolutely. Absolutely. So when we're in these meetings and in these rooms, we run into a lot of those that are lost on their path, right? Whether they're newcomers or you can tell the ones that are working a program and ones that aren't. And so it's that, it's that ignorant, the conceit, that the anger, jealousy, and greed that we see in a lot of those lost souls. What are your strategies for dealing with those as they come in and try to bring them in and welcome them in? And what's your strategy to deal with those people, those kind of folks, those addicts we try to bring in here?
Okay. I came back from vacation in November, and this gentleman came in, and it was a Wednesday. And he said, "I've been sober since yesterday morning. In all my time, I have never heard anyone speak with such dread and terror and fear in their voice about how deadly and ruthless. I just want to stop." Totally, totally terrorized. And he had some travel issues, and so I would meet him at the train, bring him in to the meeting, and I pick him up at 6:30, and our meeting starts at 7, and I was on coffee duty that week. He's now got 3 months or 4 months sober. He's got a new job. He's helped out. He's joined the tribe, as I call it, and he's become, he's gone to the middle of the pack. And um, all my strategy was just to be available, and I was able to do something for somebody else. It's in exactly the same fashion that I received. I didn't have a car when I was in Toronto. In suburbs, you have to have one. When I was in Toronto, I could get there, and there was always someone to give me a lift home. So I received this gift. I now share that gift. I share whatever gifts I have, whether I've received them from somebody else in the past. The pay it forward principle. Just what's the right thing right now for the right reasons for the most benefit of most people, me included. Okay.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Thanks.
Love
Awesome.
that. Love that. I'll ask you, Milan. So
Yep.
obviously, in these rooms, we go to a lot of meetings, as you know, and so we must learn to be tolerant of those that are lost on their path. They come in with a lot of anger, greed, conceit, ignorance, stuff like that. What are your strategies for dealing with those lost souls that come in here? We try to carry that message to them.
Well, I definitely, first of all, try to spend time with them. Like time is our most valuable commodity in life. And I would say that probably everybody that I've met inside this program, including myself, felt really lonely when they came in. And, and just being that ear, like we don't always have to be someone's solution. Sometimes we can just be that ear and that hug. And, I watched it happen, even when I was down south. Um, there, there was somebody who came in, and it was just a situation of sitting and talking to him, and feeding him one day, like, when you said the halt and the hungry, it was a reality for him. It was like when he was hungry, that was all he wanted. Why? Because he was hungry. Like it's, there's that Maslow's needs hierarchy. And if you don't have, it's really hard to think about philosophical concepts or evolution. You're still going to think about food first. And, like service is part of my day, part of my life. And, so when I'm, when I'm I will give a conversation to anybody. I go to meetings early all the time. There's not a meeting that like, I'm generally the first one there. And what that does is that lets me be there when somebody arrives who needs someone to talk to. Like quite often a lot of those people will run right at the end of the meeting. So for me, I've just found that I'm of the greatest service because I'm an early bird. Like I'm an and that has been a good asset for me in helping others because I might be sitting there setting up the chairs by myself when they arrive, and that might be the only time that they're comfortable to share. They might be afraid in front of a group if they're brand new, or they might get halfway through the meeting and they're just stressed out and overwhelmed by it all and take off. And then I have no chance to talk to them. So, like I try to talk to them early. I try to exchange a number with them. And when my when my sponsee number's low enough, I offer sponsorship to people, and I would say that that's the that's what I try to do, or that's just how I live. Not even trying to do it, but yeah, I'd
Yeah, I
say
love
that's it.
that. I
Thanks,
love
brother.
that, man. I love that. Yeah. So y'all both hit on a lot of great things on that. Obviously our primary purpose is to carry the message to that addict that still suffers. And so when they come in here and they're suffering, and they're lost in their way, that was once me. I was once that person that didn't have anybody to talk to. And the gratitude and the hope and the love that I felt when I came into my first meeting and subsequent meetings after that was just unreal. Um, what did you say? Slugs into hugs? Is that what you said, Jim?
Yeah, the people I used to want to slug, now I hug.
I love that. I had that written down, slugs into hugs. But yeah, so I embraced them with that same kind of unconditional love. And we really like in my home group, we really pump up that enthusiasm. We really try to make somebody understand that if you are even an hour clean, look, if you're high in our meetings, if you're drunk or high in our meetings, we love you, we need you here because eventually it's gonna work, it's gonna happen for you. And so we have there's a couple in our meetings now that every day they come in and say, hey, I don't have 24 hours, but I'm here. They're there every day. And I know eventually if we keep spreading this love and pushing this love, something's bringing them back, even though they're still using. And so that's the start of their higher power coming into work. Like they're already working it without even knowing that they're being willing and open-minded to something other than themselves. Um, and so we're never alone, never again, man. That's what it stands for. We are never alone, never again. A lot of us can get really, really isolated in our own thoughts. And my brain does not want me alive, right? And we can be in a room full of addicts, of hundreds of people, and feel completely isolated and alone. I can. And when I was able to come in here and thaw out, right? You got to stop using, you got to let that stuff wear out of your body, whether you're drinking, any kind of substance. You got to let it wear out of it's in your bones and in your it's in your DNA now, right? You gotta eat it, sweat it, drink it out. And when I was finally able to realize that I'm not alone in this world, and that there's hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people out here going through the same stuff that I'm going through every single day. Bro, I know I got to get that person to realize that, right? Because when they realize that there's a whole world out here of people that their primary purpose, their only purpose is to carry that message to you and to bring you in here and to help you get better. And not by telling you how to get better, but by giving you suggestions, right? We just give suggestions here. And the only suggestions we pay for, Mr. Jim, are the ones we don't take, right? And so, we come in here and we share our hope and our experience. We try to turn our mess into a message. There's some people it's a little easier for them to do that. We all serve a purpose here. Some of us are good at carrying the message. Some of us are good at service work. Some of us are good at the money part, so they get thrown in the treasury part of the thing. We all serve a purpose here. And it's trying to keep them comfortable enough to where some of that frigidness and some of that craziness wears off, and then they can finally kind of come to a point where they can meet themselves at square one and realize that everything in their addiction, they're not really responsible for that, right? Like everything you did in your active addiction and using days, what my literature tells me is I'm not responsible for that. And so if I just do a little bit of reading, it puts it in perspective where that's a whole load in itself. Because when I came into these rooms, first off, I wasn't hearing what y'all were saying. I was just uncomfortably hearing these words. But I know now that there's a whole way of life around this thing, man. I can change my life. I can finally realize who I am again today, man. I never knew who I was for 20 years. I was thinking for 20 years I lived to be the man that I became when I got off drugs. 3 years, right? And so I've got to just, like you said, give that stuff that was freely given to me, because the more I give it to them, the more I get it in return. And when I'm helping somebody else out, I'm not in that neighborhood that I don't like to be in. When I'm of service to somebody else, the best way to get out of my own head is to go do something for somebody else and be of service to somebody else. And also the best way out of my own depression and my own thinking is just a meaningful conversation. A simple, meaningful conversation with another person would get me out of my own head. Got to pick that phone up, man. That phone can get real heavy. In active addiction, if we were going for that drink or that drug, we didn't even need a phone. We're going to find it, let alone have the phone there ready to pick up and call. Like, we would drive in a hurricane on a one-wheel bicycle to get that last fix if we were sick, right? Because we felt like we were going to die. We didn't want to die. Like, that's where I was at. We made decisions based on pain. Fear, addiction is the fear of pain, close quote. That pain of like, I literally felt like I was going to die. So none of my thoughts that came after that dealt with anything other than me wanting to not feel that way. And so I can completely empathize, not just sympathize today. I have empathy in my life. I don't just sympathize with people like, oh God, I feel bad for that person. No, I can actually put myself in their shoes and say, come here, man. Like this is what I went through. This is what we all went through. And just sit down and just listen. You don't have to put all this work in, all this step work we talk about. Just sit back and listen and hear your message one bit at a time. And because we're all here and we've all been through the same near death catastrophe, man. So for anything else, I love you for that. Um, and so that's my answer for that.
Awesome. Do you have another question for me, Jim?
Sure. Real simple. When did you recognize your alcoholism?
Okay. Well, okay. I think for myself, um, part of the problem is that I didn't have alcoholism and addiction correctly defined to me. So I think that there was 17 years where I was like trotting from despicable event to spacing out despicable event and you know, what I would call, you know, when it says in the book there, like, tried to drink like a gentleman, wouldn't drink hard liquor, would only drink on Sundays, would only like, and I literally played with my powerlessness for 17 years without recognizing it as addiction or alcoholism. And so it was in the last 2 years of like of my drinking and using, where twice I remember both of those, like exactly where I was sitting and the shame and everything. And my wife, you know, being like, hey, you know, are you using, or you know, and inside my body, like inside my brain, it's like, don't lie to her, tell her the truth. And I'm like, no. And I lied. And inside, like the wave of shame and guilt that went over me in that moment. And it was like, you're an addict, you know? And that was, you know, the inner dialogue. And then the point of ending up in a hospital and my heart stopping was the final powerlessness point. So it was in the last 2 years of 37 years of things that admission was at least internally made. Yeah. And there's been no turning back since then.
Awesome. You want to ask me
Mhm.
the
Sure.
question again?
When did you recognize your alcoholism?
Well, when I realized that I was an addict, I'm an addict of everything. I'm an addict of more, whether it's alcohol, drugs, anything. Um, I remember that slow roll into uh it not being a recreational thing. I remember using and just doing it during certain events. You know, as a young child, man, you know, my father was my running partner, and it just wasn't a good person in my life. We used drugs, really hard drugs, and drank every single night for a long, long time. And we used to do it on certain like events, you know, when it would snow outside or whatever. Then it just got to where it was like every single day. And I realized that my father was an addict his whole life. You know, he was a roofer for 25 years. He worked hard, played hard. And um, gosh, as you get in, it's a slow roll into it. And then when you're finally caught up in it, man, I realized when I was completely caught in it, when I would wake up in the morning and I had been in active addiction for so long that there would be like a little time period sometimes for about 5 or 10 seconds that I would forget that I was an addict and that I needed to use that day or I was going to be sick. And then after about 5 or 10 seconds, it would hit me again that I was an addict and that here we go again in this whole cycle of just depression, degradation. I hate myself. I gotta find, you know, do I have enough drugs and alcohol to get me through the day? Do I not? How am I going to get it? And I got to go to work. And so um I realized at that point that was when, you know, you don't know if you're hot, you're cold, your skin's moving, you don't know what the hell's going on, and you really don't know if there's a way out. And I had known for a while because I felt my body kind of shutting down for like the last 2 years. There were times where I would just be laying in bed and I would feel just very uncomfortable, almost to the point where like I might just stop breathing. Like it was weird. It was like my body was telling me, "Hey, you're really getting to the point where you might not come back sometime." You know, and I remember a couple times just getting out of my bed, like crawling on the floor, not being able to breathe, and like gasping for air. And um, man, I knew I had a big problem, but my ego and pride, man, my ego and pride, I was going down fighting, man. I was going to go down to the bitter ends. And it took me, you know, I didn't say anything to anybody, and it took me having a grand mal seizure essentially in my car, in my work vehicle, driving over the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel. You know, I should have died that day. And I knew I was an addict, and I knew that I had a problem with drinking and drugs before then. But then when it comes to the point where You can't control your faculties or your body, and you can't move, and you can't breathe, and you can't talk. And you think you're gonna die, and you're actually okay with dying. And that's the thing. I was actually okay with dying. Like, I wanted my disease to bury me, Mr. Jim, and I held a resentment because it never did. And the bravest thing that I ever did was to continue living when I didn't want to. I didn't want to live. And I thought every bridge that I had tried to build was burned down. I thought that every opportunity that I had tried to create for myself was no longer available. I had no hope. I had no hope for my life. And so that's when I really realized that I had a problem, man, and I had to really do something with my life. Um, and I was lucky enough to have people in my life, family members that were able to take, at least help facilitate that. And God, man, I really had to get to change. I had to burn myself completely down to understand who I was again. But it was worth it, because for 3 years, man, my family, my mother's been sleeping for 3 years, not worrying about that phone call. You know, um, I've just been working a program, and I worked this program hard. I realized that there was a lot more that went into my addiction than the simple using of drinking and drugs, right? So I have to, my recovery has to involve a lot more than just a simple abstinence from drugs. I have to stay active. I have to stay working my step work. Or I'm gonna go right back into it, man, because my disease, it's never gonna go away. At least that's what my literature tells me. Is that, like, my disease will never go away. But I can arrest it, one day at a time, based on my spiritual conditioning. I can arrest it, and I can get a daily reprieve, which is, a daily stay of execution. And as long as I can keep it in it just for today, I'm gonna be okay, man. Because there we go with that future trip. And if I have one foot in tomorrow, I got one foot in yesterday. Like, I'm pissing all over today, right? Like I gotta stay present. I gotta stay present. And or I can get down in that hole quick. So yeah, there we go.
And Jim, you got it.
I'll ask my,
Answer for yourself.
I'll answer my own question. When did I recognize it? Probably, the big answer is probably earlier than I wanted to, but because of denial, I didn't have to, and I'm not going to. Um, I told you earlier about my New Year's Eve '95 escapades. When the ball, I didn't go out that night on New Year's Eve '95. I hung out with my oldest friend, who's a diabetic, and we put him in the hospital because of booze a few times. I came home, and the ball dropped in New York City, and I said the words, "When I get back to Toronto, I'm going to go to AA." Thought, first, only thought at the time was, I've got a lot of crap happening. Drinking isn't making it any better. You guys are going to teach me how to stop. My first meeting had been 8 months prior. I did, you know, I didn't come home, and I didn't do stupid things, but I didn't come home. And I went to a meeting. I got the big book. I read it. I read got about page 108 or 109, where it describes the uh, casual drinker, the moderate drinker, the heavy drinker, and the real alcoholic. Again, on page 21 of the big book. We did that this morning. I saw myself in there, and that's it. Put the book down. It was there 9 months later. I went to AA meetings and said I had a drinking problem, because every time I was drinking, I was having problems. Um, when I New Year's '95 had a lot of other things in it that I'm not going to go into, but bigger problems, bigger hole, bigger repercussions. Um, so I'm doing this 3 weeks in, and I finally hear someone who talked about I went down my checklist of all the things on the outside I could identify with them. He said I'm an alcoholic. It took me about 3 months where I really realized that alcoholism is not about the drinking. How much you drink, who you drink with, where you drank, when you drank. It's why you drank. And it was in about the fourth or fifth month, I started on my fourth step. And I discovered I drank because of the pain of being me. Um, and then I would hear other people with stories. And it's when I recognizes the scars in my heart match the scars in your heart, your soul, your being, whatever you want to call it. I could begin to identify. All that other outside stuff may or may not have happened. I didn't have any DUIs. I didn't go to a treatment center. I didn't get arrested for anything. I never saw a barroom fight. I drank to fit in until I didn't fit in. You know, until the booze dissolved the edges that made my puzzle piece just not fit in anywhere. Um, but I recognized that everybody drank because of the pain of being me, right? So yeah, pick up, like you mentioned before, pick up the phone. It's not going to kill you to pick up the phone, but it might actually save you or save somebody else. And recognizing, uh, and it's funny, I've traveled and I've been in crowds, and we must emit some kind of frequency because we bring ourselves together. And, you know, there are situations where I've gone to a meeting for the first time, or I've gone to a roundup and I've met someone for the first time, someone at this meeting, as an example. And we click, like we click right away. Twins, Basil, twins, like in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And that is so comforting.
It's like a magnetic field, like
Oh,
you
it
just
is.
feel it.
It is.
And
Yeah.
I just equate it to higher power too. Just brings us
I
together.
was in San Juan Capistrano one time, and this lady, the way she looked at me and the way she smiled at me, I knew and she knew, and we didn't have to say anything about it. We
That's
just
it.
know. Yeah. Yeah.
It's communication without even. It's just a man.
Yeah.
I'm just like you. Relatability,
Yeah.
and
Just like
it's
today.
great. Yep, it's great. I love it.
Okay, I'm going to ask a last question here.
Sure.
And first, it'll come to you, Andrew, and then to you, Jim. Okay. Uh, where would you like to see your program go from here to remain in great emotional and physical sobriety?
Well, where would I like to see? Well, I try not to set too much lofty expectations on where I'm going. I try to stay present. I try to stay knowing that like what I'm doing today is going to be enough. But it is about setting goals that are attainable today. Um, you know, in active addiction, I would set all these lofty goals, and they weren't really goals. They were just dreams, I guess, you know, being a millionaire and having this huge house and all that stuff. So I set realistic expectations for myself today and realistic goals for myself. You know, I stay tapped into this fellowship, man. I know that it's very, very hard to use drugs in a meeting. I stay in meetings. I am a meeting making fool. My actual home group is called NA Meeting Makers. Um, you know, it's really, really hard to be using drugs in a meeting. And so when I get into these meetings, I have that feeling that I need to feel, that feeling other than myself. Um, you know, I sponsor a couple of young men. You know, I'm fortunate enough to be able to do that. And that's the highest form of service in our fellowship, is being able to sponsor other men. And and you know, I do a lot of speaking engagements. We're doing this podcast. You know, I'm continuously spreading that message. It's one of my superpowers today, is to try to bring people in and make them feel loved and make them feel a part of. Um, you know, you know, willingness without action is fantasy. You hit on it earlier. Yesterday's shower is not going to keep me clean today. And I know that drugs and alcohol produced an illusion that my life was manageable. And it wasn't. We clearly know now that it wasn't. And the drugs and the alcohol wasn't really it wasn't the problem. That was just a simple solution to my problem. I have a me problem. You know what I mean? My character defects are coming out in all kinds of hairy ways. Now that I'm clean, they're coming out worse because I'm feeling those feelings and emotions, right? And I have to deal with them. And I have to stay away from all those old people, playmates and playgrounds and playthings, right? It was and narcotics really weren't the problem. It was my conscious separation from that God of my understanding. I was running from him, Jim. I was running from God because I didn't have anything to offer him. I was doing everything I did was wrong. And I felt like if he caught up with me, why am I going to pray to this person that this thing that when I'm doing nothing right anyways? And if he does catch up to me, he's just going to take the few things that I do have, you know? And so, you know, when he delivers you from active addiction and alcoholism, I got to stay as far away from those old behaviors and things as I can. You know, I can't stay in those same places and in areas and hang out with those same people, or I'm not going to succeed, right? Like think about it like this. Prisoners do not go hang out at prison when they get released from prison. Right. When you get released from prison, the prisoners don't go get their lunch at McDonald's and then go sit in the yard and hang out with their buddies after they get released from prison. Like they get as far away from that prison as they possibly can. So I got to stay into that lane, right? I got to understand that like my God's power of love creates my blessings today. And then it's my faith. I got to stay faithful. You hit on faith too earlier. Faith, finding answers in the hurt. Here you go. There's another one. Faith, finding answers in the hurt. My faith is what schedules those blessings today. As long as I stay faithful, I can tap into those blessings because their blessings are all out there. I just got to go get them. As long as I remain faithful in my endeavors, I'm gonna get them. I'm gonna get those things. Um, and so time, things I must earn, pride, primary reasons I die early, hope, hold on, pain ends, hearing other people's experiences, ego, Ed just got out. Faith is finding answers in the hurt, man. And pain, you know what pain is? It's just positive attitude and negativity. So I'm throwing all the acronyms at you, Jim, as we're kind of trying to close out here. So I'm hitting you with all of them. Push, 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 pray until something happens. Because even if it's not talking back, I promise you eventually it will. Um, and grow or die, man. Grow or die. Because I don't want to die. That doesn't sound like a good plate to be munching on. So I've gotten my life back and everything else that I've wanted. I wouldn't give away my seat for the world. It is priceless, and I can go anywhere in the world and feel at home, Jim. And home is not a place; it's a feeling. I can go anywhere in the world and get prayed into a meeting and feel it at home, even if it's not in the same language. I can go feel at home, and I can stay clean and sober while I'm doing it. You know, so yeah, thank you for being here, Jim. And that's my answer to that question. Thank you for asking me, Milan. I love you.
Love you too, brother. And Jim, where would you like to see your program to go from here to remain in great emotional and physical sobriety?
To borrow from Andrew, grow or die. Uh, I continue to pray for the courage to do the right thing. And uh, like I said before, I put away the fingerprint kit. Last Tuesday, I was sitting in a parked car and someone backed into me. Now I'm doing physiotherapy 2 days a week. I'm finally getting some feeling in. Getting back into physical health. I have been doing that since I retired a year ago, and it's helping. I'm finding great comfort in yoga, which is opening my mind and calming my spirit a whole lot, as well as the small moves that make everything else work great. Um, yeah, being able to wipe your own ass is a great thing. Independence. Where do I want to go? Um, this morning I woke up in my little castle by the sea with my princess, and I'm quite content with that. But if I'm Ridley, um, I can get thoughts in my head that are negative or mean or angry. So I'm going to try and bring Ridley back into this. Um, so I'm trying to in my prayers which have evolved from help to please help me, please help me be, or help me become, or help me become your agent to do as you please, or you would have me do. So I want that to continue to evolve. And that's the continuing growing emotionally. Physically, I would like to be able to experience good health in the future, but I have to do it today. Kind of like sobriety. If I want sobriety down the road, I got to have it today first. Um, I am hoping to find new avenues of service. I am seeing a path end, and I know that, one door closes, another opens. It always happens that way. It's happened to me in the past. Just when I thought it was over, I am still doing something. I am now at a place where I never thought I'd be, and I'm doing it in record period of time. It's it's a continuing process, and I'm praying that I don't fall in on myself and adopt, get be Ridley again and get the defeatist attitude going on and get the efforts, and I have to do more. I mean, going to meetings and sitting in meetings, that's called osmosis. You can only absorb what your bum can endure. I have to pick up the book.
As
I actually have to do a fourth step every now and then. I mean, even if I do it on Olympic years, it's getting done. I have found great comfort in doing the steps. A fourth step can be as big or as narrow a focus as you want. I mean, I lost a job one time. I did it on just employment. And when I went to the placement agency, they couldn't believe I knew myself so well. I can't tell you why, but I do know. After a breakup, I did one, and uh, you know, it was rather revealing. So continuing to do step work, continuing to help others, right? It's 6 words to define AA: clean house, find God, help others. Um, and keep it as simple as possible, and don't get ahead of myself. Um, stay right here, right now. Because if I don't, I know I'll be singing some Pink Floyd songs. I'll be getting comfortably on the dark side of the moon.
Osmosis, man. I freaking love that. Look, and y'all two can relate to this because and I strictly am on the other fellowship, but y'all, or at least you, Milan. I heard somebody come into the room to say he's bisexual.
Yeah.
Work both the steps, bisexual.
Okay, that's different.
I
It's
love that.
different. Yeah.
Oh man. I'm really grateful to be here with both you guys today. I gotta say that it's
Got to
just
get your number, Jim.
oh yeah, it's definitely warms my heart to start a day like today with both of you. For myself, uh my emotional sobriety depends on rest, on exercise, and on food. Just as the very baseline physical starting point. And so, I really just, I would be very happy for myself to just keep my program going, to keep resting, to keep exercising. I would like to eat a little bit better. I would say that, treats can be a weak point for me in my life. Um, I'm enjoying looking at doing some more step work right now. So a cycle of step work is definitely something, that I want to keep working on. I'm enjoying the slope of incline inside my own emotional sobriety. And I've been 100% abstinent on everything for over 17 months now. And so I can't get straighter, but I would like to say that I want to stay here. So whatever I got to do to stay here, and a bunch of that really is just continuing my program. Like I don't like doing certain things over and over in a day doesn't make a day boring to me. It it makes me it's given me a sense, to be honest, of self-worth, that I'm actually taking time to care for myself for the first time in my whole life. You know, like I spent so many years killing myself and watching myself just do stupid, horrible things. And then to now be on the other side of that, it's really exciting to maintain that. And then to have the opportunity with this podcast to keep growing by having conversations with wonderful brothers like you guys, you know, I would, if you'd be willing to come back, Jim, I would happily have like an episode once a month with you and Andrew, if it's something that you would consider. You know, I think that the three of us could easily have wonderful conversations that often, you know. And
Oh, hell yeah.
awesome.
Yes. Let's go ahead and put it in the schedule.
Yeah. So I think for me that's pretty much it though, is that, you know, honestly, maintaining the status quo would be the greatest gift for me for my recovery. You know, like to just continue learning, to continue pushing, and to continue evolving, you know, not staying like stagnant, but staying stagnant in my growth. Like, you know, keeping that trajectory that I'm trying to project myself on. You know, that would be very, very pleasing to me.
And if you
And
don't continue to grow, grow stands for God rewards our work. Ooh, I had to come through with one more, bro. God
there we
rewards our
go.
work. Trying.
Being an alcoholic is doomed to be walking up the down escalator for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and these steps, and look, and these steps are the only steps that you can't take an elevator on, right, Jim?
Yeah,
You can't
that's
take the
right.
elevator up these steps, and they have branches
No
in heaven. You
shortcuts.
got to have roots in hell, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah. Tom Petty says you can stand me up at the gates of hell, but I won't back down.
I love this guy, Milan. I love this
Well,
guy.
I'm more musical than anagrams, but anyway.
I'm
well,
loving it.
I would say you're both.
You're a
Like from an
mixture.
outsider perspective,
You're like a
you got
lovely
both.
mixture of both, and it's like it's almost like a melody version of of what I love. So I love it, man. I
Yeah.
love it.
Well, today has been a pleasure. Thank you, Jim, for your first time on, and
Thanks,
Andrew,
Jim.
you're my brother, and
Yes.
I knew that this was going to be a fun morning for us.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
does
Can't wait
anybody
to
got
do it
anything they want to say before we sign
Well,
off?
it's been great, Milan. It's good to see you again. A new friend, and then I made another new friend today. So that I've got a highly successful day so far. My
That's
other
what I'm talking
woes,
about.
well, let's see what happens with those. But anyway,
Thank you, Jim. Really appreciate you, man. Love you, bro.
yeah, thanks, man.
And everybody out there, tune in next episode for more recovery fun.
Bye, everybody.
Bye bye, everybody.
guys.
We
Been
love
great.
you.
It's good to be us.
Please help us help others. If you'd like what you've seen here today, please subscribe and share this podcast and help us get to 100 followers. We're looking for interaction with our audience. So please email recoveryfreedomrising@gmail.com or contact Milan South Okanagan Starcic on Facebook with questions, topic suggestions, or just comments. We'd love to hear from you.